Hey guys, it's Carl. Welcome back to my channel. In this video, I want to talk about a very specific problem to a very specific group of people. Is that people who's in their career transition. Basically, they don't want to do what they have been doing anymore. They want to switch to a new job. They want to switch to a new industry, a different company that's doing different stuff. The reason I want to talk about this is because recently there are several people reaching out to me. They have the same problem and they're all during their career transition. They're looking for a new role in a new company, in a new industry. They want to get into something completely different from what they have been doing in the past. And these people are all like mid to senior level, even in manager level. The reason I want to talk about this is because I realize a lot of the things they've been doing, a lot of their sticking point are actually pretty similar. And I'm speaking from my personal experience because around 2 years ago, I was experiencing the same thing. And this actually comes to my background, which I actually never mentioned on this channel, I think. So I was working in financial service industry for a couple years after graduation. I was studying finance in university, and I kind of just naturally get into all those financial industry companies like asset management, banks, all that crap. I was staying in corporate finance for the most part, hated it. And then my last job in financial service was around strategy. It's sounds more interesting and exciting, but essentially it's still the same thing. And then after that, I was exploring other options. I was looking into something like management consulting, in-house consulting at tech companies. I was actually super interested in biz ops roles in tech. Got a couple offer back then, got something in strategic finance as well. And also I tried management consulting for a little bit, but that's a long story. Anyways, I was experiencing the same thing during career transition, and I had the same sticking point. And that's the thing I want to talk about, is that these people, including myself, was making the same huge mistake during their career transition. And then before we dive into it, just a quick note here. So everything I mentioned in this video is super subjective, which means they're all based on my personal experience, my standpoint, my mentality. They might not apply to you in your very specific situation. So if you're gonna take my advice, use your discretion before you do so. Now, I wanna quickly show some screenshots of what one of a person sent me. Basically, he's not really sure what he wants to get into, but he kind of has some idea, like maybe he should do something, build up some soft skills and then learn some sales skill. And then he's taking some general computer science online courses, taking some other sales online courses, trying to open up his opportunity. But the thing is, his sticking point is that he's not getting enough interviews. Like, people are not willing to give him an opportunity for an interview, to have a formal conversation, to discuss their opening. And do you think if he spent 6 months on a computer science course or other sort of online courses and ended up having this one line of item added to his resume being like, hey, I have this certificate, I finished this online course, do you think this is going to make a difference? Well, essentially you have a new line that's better than nothing, but that's not really getting you the opportunity. I think the biggest problem here these people have, including myself, is that we're too serious about learning, especially when we're trying to get into a role that has a little technical aspects to it. For example, something I am more familiar with. So like data analyst, business analyst, data scientist, or something like software engineer. You know, the biz ops role, the strategy role at tech companies, they all require me to learn SQL. And the level of SQL that's required back then was actually different. Some of them require me to just know a tiny little bit. Some gave me like really extremely difficult test. And then back then, I think the biggest mistake I was making was I tried to spend a couple months full-time learning SQL. Like, I try to be an expert. I try to learn the ins and outs. I want to be, All right, so back to what I was saying. The thing I regret doing, or at least it seems like a detour from now, is that I try to learn SQL from a very systematic approach. Like, I try to learn it very comprehensively. I try to learn every single syntax, try to learn how each of them works, spending a lot of time on LeetCode, trying to solve the medium to even hard questions. It seems to me now it doesn't make too much sense right now. The reason for that is, and also this is the problem a lot of these people have, where they don't realize, is that The biggest problem is not that they don't know the technicals enough, is that they cannot get interviews. Like they simply don't have enough interviews. And like people think, okay, I've been actively applying for the past 2 months. I'm not getting too many interviews. Oh, that's maybe because I don't know the technical good enough. For example, someone transitioning into a software engineer job, they never had any technical experience in the past. They might be thinking, okay, maybe my bootcamp is just not comprehensive enough. I need to spend more time doing lead code, learning the basics more. And even see some of these people, they're learning math. Like they try to build up the math foundation just because they want to be a software engineer. I'm not saying that's a bad approach. I'm just saying those things does not get you interviews. Like you cannot put those things on a resume. You can't just be like on your resume, be like, hey, I spent the past 6 months learning coding full time, learning all these languages. Like, I don't think that's gonna impress the hiring manager. I don't think they make too much difference, even though there are some difference, but not really like make or break terms. It's like if I'm a hiring manager, I look at someone, they spent the past 5 years in accounting, they're applying for a software engineer job on my team, and then I see that they took like a 6-month boot camp. So what? Like, I still doubt it, right? I still doubt whether they're able to solve my problem. You see the disconnection here? It's like people are thinking, okay, maybe I need to do more. Maybe I need to do more learning. I need to learn all the fundamentals. I need to learn these technical skills from a systematic approach so that I can open up my opportunity. But the thing is, that's not going to help them. Your priority should be getting your first round interviews. The most important thing in this process is just your resume. So think about what you're doing when you're job searching. Like, what you're doing every day, the time you're spending, the effort you're putting into, are they contributing to improving your resume, like in a meaningful way? Let's just say you're adding on some make or break terms. It's like your previous version of resume, a hiring manager see it, is like, oh, that's boring, maybe not my candidate. And then after you added something, add some new experience, some project information, they'd be like, oh, this is actually very interesting. I want to talk to this person. Like, this is something you want to do instead of spending those 6 months learning all the fundamental skills. Because I'm not saying fundamental is not important, but they're not getting you the interviews. Like, you have all the time. If you actually landed that job, you have all the time to figure out all the technical details, all those fundamentals. And a lot of people don't realize that. So you really need to do what matters. Another thing is that I think a lot of people are doing this, including myself, doing this back then. Like, we want to be fully prepared. We'd be like, hey, I want to learn something very well. I want to be an expert in this field so I can put this thing on my resume, so I can confidently talk about it, so I can answer every single question during interviews. I remember back then I was spending so much time, even full time, learning SQL, practicing all those tests because I'm so afraid of confrontation. It's like I was, there's more than once I imagined a situation where I was talking to a hiring manager in an interview and they asked me a technical question and I have no idea how to answer. And there's absolutely no way I can get around. Like, the only answer I can give is that I don't know. And I think that's like super awkward and not a situation I know how to handle. But that was just my imagination. And then in reality, when I was actually interviewing out there, when I was putting myself out there, it's either not that hard of a question where during the interview I can still improv, I can still find a way around, or it's something I have prepared for. It's more like the fear of confrontation. It's like you want to be fully prepared, but fully prepared does not really exist. That comes to another recent conversation I had with another person. So she's actually not a job transitioner. Is that a word? Transitioner. I mean, she's not transitioning her field, but she's also looking for a job. And then I remember she told me that in the field of machine learning, there's the point of being good enough doesn't exist. It's like you can never be good enough. Like in machine learning, you can always learn new things. You can always improve. And you don't know when you'll reach that point when you feel like, okay, I am fully prepared in this field. I can prepare for all those interviews. Like, that thing does not exist in reality. That kind of proved my point, where it's more like you need to directly solve the problem instead of being really comprehensive, being the absolute expert in this field. I want to make an analogy because For the past couple months, I've been learning a lot about business, being entrepreneurial, learning all about startups, how it works, especially when it comes to sales and marketing. So I think a concept in sales is actually really transferable into my point here about interview, is that a lot of people who's never been a business owner, never run a business, never been a businessman, they're thinking whenever they're launching a new product, they're providing something to the market, they have to be 100% ready. It's like, hey, this is the problem I'm gonna solve for my prospects, for my customers. I'm gonna have the product ready. But in reality, it's not like this. They sell it first. They spend all their energy and resources on the marketing and sales. They make some good, like killer copywriting content, and then put it to the market to test if people are actually willing to pay. And once they get that money in their pocket, that's the point they start the product development. That's the point they start to finalize all the details of what they're going to deliver. That's just how it works. And it's more about dealing with uncertainty. And I think the same concept applies to interviews. It's not like you can't just think you can be 100% expert before you walk into an interview, before you apply for a job. Like you literally have to throw yourself out there and just take it from there. Face the challenge, face the problem, and then you figure out what's going on. But then again, I'm not saying the fundamentals, the system does not work. Like technically, if you learn something, if you want to learn a new skill or a new knowledge, you take the systematic approach, you do it very comprehensively, you learn all the little details. I mean, technically that is the best. Like that can make you an expert. That can make you being able to face all the different situations and different problems. But in reality, it just doesn't work for most people. Like it's hard to execute. If you're someone that's transitioning your career, let's just say you're in accounting, you want to get into software engineer, you don't really have all the time to do so, to learn all the stuff, right? If you want to spend, let's just say 6 months to a year to learn coding, and you're spending a couple months to build up some math foundation, the thing is, during this time, you don't have too much positive feedback, which is making it really hard for you to stick to it. And also, I think my point applies only to the general situation, right? If you're someone that's like really smart, you can, whenever you're learning a new skill, you can always learn it in a systematic approach. You learn it comprehensively, you learn all the little details, and you're able to do it in a month or 2 months, then you do you, right? But then I think the reason most of these people that's in career transition running into this problem is because of that. It's like they want to learn all the basics. They're not doing things that matter, in my opinion. And what matter is the first point that I mentioned, getting an interview. What you're learning has to be directly contributing to helping you get a first round. That's your priority. So for the past 5 to 10 minutes, I keep saying learning the foundation does not work. So what work? In the case of business analysts, data analysts, or data scientists, because these are something I'm more familiar with, I'll give you a more specific example. So if you spend all those time, like 3 to 6 months learning the basics, it's really hard for you to put that on your resume. Like you cannot showcase on your resume or demonstrate on your resume that you put in all the hard work learning all those things. But an easy way is to have some portfolio link. Like you did some real project. Let's just say you go on Kaggle, you find some data set, like some real data set or some real projects. You actually put in some time to do the hard work, get like an actionable insight to really showcase, okay, you put in some really valuable work. And that's the most direct way to show your value, where the hiring manager see it, they probably be interested. Instead of looking at this one single line, be like, I was in the boot camp for the past 6 months. Like that does not say anything. And I think another thing is networking. Like if you're actually able to get yourself standing in front of, maybe not standing in front of, maybe even virtually, directly talk to a decision maker and being able to impress that person, that's going to make a difference. That's absolutely going to make a difference instead of being cold applying. And obviously there are lots of ways, lots of tips and tricks in terms of networking. Networking is actually a very big topic. And I'm not going to give you a specific approach. Like most people just use the most simple way, cold messaging people on LinkedIn. I mean, that's what everyone else is doing. So if you want to stand out, you're going to do something different. And you can always be more creative about it. And another point I want to mention here is taking a step back. It's like most people are so fixated or tunnel vision onto a very specific problem, be like, I don't know coding good enough, or I don't know SQL good enough. I cannot solve some LeetCode hard questions. That's what they're focusing on. That's what they're telling themselves. But you have to realize, like, these teams are hiring someone to solve an actual problem. And if you can prove that you're able to solve that problem, the technical skills does not really matter, right? It's just a means to an end. So you're going to focus on the problem. I'll give you another analogy here. Let's just say you are running a startup and you're building this mobile app where you're selling some shoes on that app, and you want to test your idea. You want to see if people are actually willing to pay for some shoes from your app. And the way you test it, you're not going to spend a couple months building this app, finish this app, coding and stuff. And once the app is finished, you put it to the market to see if someone's willing to pay for it. That's not something you will do. That's freaking stupid, right? You'll probably just be like going out physically to one of the local shoe store. You talk to the owner, be like, hey, can I take some photo to some product here? And you actually take some photo. They'd be like, yes. And then you take those photos from your phone. You talk to some random prospects, like your potential customers. You'd be like, hey, would you like to buy these shoes just by looking at these photos? If they say yes, that means your idea is valid. And that's the point when you start to allocate resources to start building that product, right? So you focus on the end problem. What is the problem you're trying to solve? You're giving a solution for people that wanting to buy shoes. The app is just a means to an end. And the app does not matter at that point when you're testing your idea. Once your idea is valid, that's the point you start figuring out all those technical details, figuring out the coding, and spend time coding, spend time, hiring someone, maybe doing get some contractors, etc., etc. Most people are too focused on the middle part instead of the actual problem. All right, so that's all I have to say for today. I hope that makes sense. I hope that's helpful, especially if this is your problem. And that actually feels like rambling because this video is largely unscripted, which is not something I usually do, but let me know if you like it. Anyways, I'll see you guys in the next. What's the last thing I was gonna say?